seen him preach?
Mm-mm.
How was he?
Seen better. Seen worse. Seen much worse.
You know, that's the tough part about being a minister, Raleigh. Who do I turn to? Where do I go when I have a problem?
Teach me.
That man wasn't there. Why can't you cheat?
Cheating? Why, that's an insult, and I ought to ask you to step outside.
Oh, yeah?
Then I could cheat and you wouldn't notice.
Let's go now. Good Lordy.
What's it like working with my old friend Jester?
Oh, wow.
Is he?
A history book, a walking history book. We just never cease to be amazed. I've worked with him over a period of 14 years because we were on That's My Mama together.
Yeah.
And I have loved him. I call him Pop affectionately. Yeah. And I think you probably should talk with him.
You know what? I was 3 years old when he graduated from the University of Tufts University.
Is that right?
Well, that puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Jester Hairston, a national treasure.
Jester Hairston, the man, the myth, the legend, could compose a symphony, crack a joke, and act circles around your faves, all before his morning coffee. He was obsessed with spirituals, like couldn't get enough obsessed. His life mission? Digging up those old gems, polishing them, and sharing them with the world. To Jester, spirituals were the real deal, the best thing America ever put into music. He wanted people to sing them right, with all the soul and power they deserve.
Amen. And almost everybody can sing it. That's why we say you can sing if you want with us. I'll teach you how to sing the song. All you have to do is say amen. But hey, here's the rhythm. Don't get in rhythm. White folks don't have the rhythm. You know more about music, but you don't know anything about rhythm.
Hairston's story isn't just about music. It's about passion, talent, and keeping it 100. All right, let's break it down. What are spirituals? They're way more than just songs. They're the soul and heartbeat of a people's struggle and their dreams of freedom, birthed from the harsh reality of slavery in the American South. Think African beats mixed with Christian faith.
Roll, Jordan, roll, my soul arise in heaven, Lord.
There's a magic in those spirituals, a mix of raw emotion and shared human experience. Joy, sorrow, longing, all of it. And Jester Hairston, he dedicated his life to keeping that magic alive, reviving those powerful tunes for the world to feel. Jester Hairston was born on July 9, 1901, in Belews Creek, North Carolina, far from Hollywood's glitz.
I was born in Belews Creek, a little town in North Carolina. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and then all my schooling above that high school was in Massachusetts. I was born there July the 9th, 1901, and my mother told me about my father being born there, right up in the woods there, and his full family, and that family of blacks, formerly before two generations before me, were slaves of the white Hairstons. These were Scotch-Irish, the Hairstons, the white Hairston.
Jester Hairston's parents were Nanny Ramey and Louis Hairston, but things weren't going to be easy for Jester growing up. See, Jester's dad was a hard-working man, but in those days, jobs were tough to come by, especially for black folks. To make ends meet, he ended up working in a steel mill. It was dangerous work, really dangerous. One day, while he was on the job, there was a terrible accident. A piece of machinery malfunctioned, and it took his life. Imagine that, losing your dad in such a sudden and horrible way. It was a shock to the whole family, especially to young Jester. As a result, he was raised primarily by his grandmother while his mother worked. Raised by his grandma, a former slave, Jester's upbringing was no walk in the park. His grandma, secretly taught to read and write by the master's daughter, filled his head with stories and songs.
Well, I studied a lot about the slave life. My grandmother was a slave in Virginia. I remember as a child, I was exposed to it. She and all of her relatives, all her friends would come to our house in the summertime and talk over there, tell about what happened on their plantations.
He says every Friday morning or Friday evening, you wash.
And let all the children stay there with you until you get through. When you get through, then y'all can go back to field and wait.
By the time I was 10 years old, I knew as much as a Harvard professor about slavery because they would tell so many. You always ended up by the most gruesome ghost stories you ever heard in your life. Oh, yes. Every plantation had a ghost in it. And I was afraid at nights, you know.
Ensuring he knew his roots. Seeking a better life, the family moved to Pennsylvania and, like his father, worked in steel mills. But Jester was different. He loved learning and playing sports and earned a scholarship to Tufts University. Initially aiming to be an engineer, he quickly realized music was his true calling. Imagine Jester fixing pipes instead of composing symphonies. He switched to Juilliard and started making waves in music. At Juilliard, he sang in the choir, played football, and hustled to pay the bills. He even acted in The Emperor Jones. After college, he headed to New York City, the land of dreams. But being black in the 1920s was tough. Despite the challenges, his music career took off. He joined the Eva Jesse Choir, singing spirituals in churches. Then came the big break, an audition with Hall Johnson, a spirituals legend. The competition was fierce, with tall guys lining up. Jester, being shorter, claimed to be a tenor just to get noticed. Sneaky, right? But it worked. He wanted to be Johnson's right-hand man, but Johnson initially turned him down, thinking Jester didn't grasp the soul of the spirituals. The songs were a gift from their ancestors, a legacy meant to last forever. Hall Johnson revolutionized spirituals, taking them from the fields to Broadway.
And then when I came to Hollywood in 1935, I was the conductor of the assistant conductor of the Hall Johnson Choir. We came here to do a picture, The Green Pastures. It ran 2 years on Broadway, and then Warner Brothers bought it for a picture. And they, instead of doing it with a black choir here in Hollywood, they brought us 50 of us back who had done the show on Broadway.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Has you been redeemed?
The show The Green Pastures was a massive hit. The theater world was finally opening up to black music and black talent. His work on this film opened doors wider than a summer blockbuster premiere, leading him to compose, arrange, and act in numerous productions. Talkies were just starting to blow people's minds, and Hollywood was on the hunt for fresh sounds and stories. They realized that black folks had this incredible music and rhythm thing going on, and they wanted a piece of it. Warner Brothers decided to turn The Green Pastures into a movie, and off they went to sunny California. Hairston was Johnson's right-hand man, of course.
Then pretty soon a little cat would come trotting into view. Well, what a pretty little cat, said the deacon sort of slow.
They brought their amazing choir out to Hollywood, but it wasn't big enough. So Hairston got creative and put together the first ever mixed-race choir in Tinseltown. And let me tell you, they were on fire. In just 6 years, they made music for like 40 movies. But even though The Green Pastures was a hit, getting steady work in Hollywood was tough for Hairston and the choir. They had to hustle, doing concerts and other gigs to make ends meet. One night, a magical thing happened. A Russian composer named Dimitri Tumkin,
the fabulous Mr. Dimitri Tumkin.
How do you do?
Saw Hairston and his choir perform.
I had been in several pictures with John Wayne, but as a musician, I had choirs sing in the background of pictures with Dimitri Tumkin, Russian composer. 20 years I worked with him right here in Hollywood and did his arrangements.
Tumkin was blown away by their sound. He said it was softer, more from the heart. They became a dynamic duo, and Hairston learned a ton from Tumkin about music. During one of his theater gigs, Hairston met the love of his life, a singer named Margaret Swanigan. They fell head over heels and built a beautiful life together. Hairston was a busy guy, arranger, actor,
Ladies and gentlemen, Raleigh and the Rappers.
Singer, and even waiter or dock worker when the movie gigs dried up.
Salerno and Palermo.
Well, whichever it is.
Except the food.
Hairston was a master at taking old songs and giving them new life. He loved to start with everyone singing together and then let the voices spread out like wings. His arrangements had an incredible African rhythm feel to them. These songs aren't just for Black people, though. They speak to everyone who's been through tough times. They're about hope, about finding strength when the world is against you. That's why we call them spirituals. They feed your soul.
See him in the garden, praying to his father.
There are different names for these songs. Sorrow songs, shouts, work songs, they're all part of the same story, the story of slavery.
I have a few songs, I guess about 80 altogether. My field is the folk songs of blacks,
right.
The slave songs. I'm interested in that, and all my life, music life, I've worked on slave songs, and some of them are very popular.
Arrangers like Hairston took these raw melodies and turned them into something even more powerful. When Hairston moved to Los Angeles, people knew next to nothing about Black music. Schools didn't teach it, so he was like a walking encyclopedia. His time there was a gold mine for learning about the spirituals. Even while he was making a name for himself in Hollywood, Hairston was on a mission. He wanted to save these songs, to record them before they were lost forever. In the 1930s and 40s, he traveled all over, searching for people who had lived through slavery. He'd sit and listen to their stories, and then he'd ask them to sing. Some were hesitant at first, but then they'd start, and it was like a window into the past. He told this amazing story about finding an old man who finally sang Elijah Rock after a lot of coaxing. Hairston had some strong ideas about how to make a choir sound amazing. He thought that the bass singers were the real stars, the foundation of the sound. He'd always tell the others to listen to the basses and let their voices soar above.
When we learned that particular song, and they learned it, then I said, now, gentlemen, I had 18 men and 2 women in the class, so I could consider them all gentlemen. I said, gentlemen, you must, now that you've learned it, I want you to clap your hands as you feel it. And every one of them, this is what I learned about my race of people and from Africa. Every single one of those black people, and they were all blacker than I am. I wrote my wife, but they said they call me Blondie. They think I'm a mulatto. but here's what they did. Rock my soul, and all of them. Rock my soul in the bosom of. I said, oh no, for goodness sake. I've been bawling white people out in the United States for 40 years, telling them how wrong and square they are, and come over here and find all you brothers clapping wrong.
For him, it was like building a musical pyramid. The basses were the strong bass, and the sopranos were the beautiful, shining top. While Hairston was busy preserving the old songs, something incredible was happening. Young Black people were finding new meaning in the spirituals. All across the South, they were turning these songs of slavery into anthems for freedom. They sang them in jails, at big rallies, and on marches. When things got tough, like during voter registration drives, the music brought them together and gave them strength. It was more than just singing. It was a way of fighting, of living as one. Just like the slaves before them, these new singers changed the words to fit their lives. Songs like Keep Your Eyes on the Prize and Hold On Keep your eyes on the prize became their battle cries. And can you believe it? Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Was changed from a song about Jesus.
Stayed on freedom. Oh, yes, I'm walking with my mind. It was woke up this morning with my mind.
As America started to change, so did Hairston's role. In 1961, the U.S. State Department appointed Jester Hairston as Goodwill Ambassador. He traveled all over the world, teaching and performing the folk music of the slaves.
I had the greatest time in my life in Africa, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't know. For instance, the rhythm. taught these people. I had to have my songs translated in Mali. That was a French country. The French conquered Mali, and all the blacks had to learn French, just like we had to learn English. We came from Africa, but after we got here on Master's Plantation, we had to learn his language. And so I had my songs translated into French on one side and English on the other, and we learned it first in French. And Rock of My Soul. Berce mon âme sur la poitrine d'Abraham, berce mon âme sur la poitrine d'Abraham, and so forth.
Hey, I'm just getting into it.
Why, they're clapping like they had some sense out there, Michael.
He became an ambassador for the spirituals. The government loved sending him on trips because he was a natural performer, always picking the right songs to wow the crowd.
The government sent me to Mali in Africa. They sent me all over the world, teaching people in those countries how to sing black folk songs, the songs of my ancestors in every country. All over Africa, I made 4 trips to Africa. And Yugoslavia, you should have seen me teaching the Yugoslavs how to sing Rock of My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham.
Hairston was one of those guys who could charm anyone. He learned to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored to bring you the greetings of my country, the United States of America, in like 65 different languages." It was his way of connecting with people, showing them respect, and making them feel special. And then in 1983, something incredible happened. The Chinese government invited Jester and his massive 200-voice choir, the William Hall, to tour their country. They were going to visit 5 different cities. It was a huge deal, a real game changer. Back then, it was super rare to see foreigners there. He led the Jester Hairston Corral, a group of singers from all different races, to perform in China. Jester Hairston was the Swiss Army knife of Hollywood. Need someone to compose a touching melody? Call Jester. Need an actor with perfect comedic timing? Jester's your guy. Need someone to arrange an entire choral ensemble before lunch? Jester could do it with one hand tied behind his back. Some of his most notable acting credits include The Alamo,
185 men fighting to their deaths.
To Kill a Mockingbird, and the TV series Amen, where he played Raleigh Forbes.
Always out front. No hemming on hard.
A character so lovable, you'd wish he was your grandpa. By this point in his life, Jester Hairston was a heavy hitter in Hollywood. His music touched a lot of people, and folks wanted to show their appreciation, and he was honored reverently. First off, he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's like the biggest honor for anyone in showbiz. But it wasn't just about his TV performances either. His deep knowledge of music, culture, and history made him the recipient of more than a few honorary degrees. If you recall, Jester dropped out of Massachusetts Agricultural College in the 1920s to pursue music, but the college didn't entirely forget about their old dropout. In 1972, they gave him an honorary degree. And then, get this, when he was like 91 years old, they gave him another award called the Distinguished Alumnus Award from the Department of Music and Dance. With all that recognition and the fact that he was an in-demand performer, it comes as no surprise that he ended up with a net worth of about $5 million. Jester Hairston's legacy shines bright. Not only did he compose over 300 spirituals, but he also graced the screen in numerous films and TV shows, leaving an undeniable mark on music and entertainment. Hairston passed away in 2000 at 98, leaving behind his daughter, Jean Marie Swan. 3 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren continue his incredible legacy. But his music, it lives on. Visit his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and celebrate the man who brought soulful spirituals to the world. Hairston's story is a powerful reminder that music connects, heals, and inspires us all.